It's strange how long we can carry something without ever questioning it. Hate becomes routine, it becomes normal, it doesn't come with a warning label, it just grows, slowly, feeding off fear, ignorance, and silence. That's what it did to me. For 30 years I lived with that weight. I didn't question it, I didn't challenge it, I didn't even see it for what it really was. I saw it as truth. I thought I was being realistic. I thought I was being cautious, patriotic, smart. I thought they were the problem. I thought people who didn't look like me, pray like me, talk like me, were dangerous. That's what I was taught, and I never looked back to see if it was a lie. And then it happened. One day, everything changed. I wasn't expecting a lesson. I wasn't searching for a sign. I wasn't trying to grow. I was just living the same way I always had. Then my heart gave out. A sharp pain hit me like a lightning bolt. I fell to the ground, clutching my chest, the world going dark. I couldn't breathe, couldn't call for help, couldn't even think straight. I was dying, alone. And I knew it, but I wasn't alone for long. I heard footsteps. I barely opened my eyes and saw someone rushing over. His face blurred, his voice calm but urgent. He knelt beside me, his hands on my shoulders, and said, "Stay with me, help is coming." I didn't even register who he was until I caught a clearer look. He was Muslim, dressed traditionally. Beard, accent, everything that would have made me cross the street just a day before. But in that moment, I couldn't run. I couldn't judge, I could only receive. This man, this stranger I would have labeled an enemy, was saving my life, not asking who I voted for, not asking what I believed. He just acted. His voice was steady. His hands were strong. His presence was peace. I was slipping, and he held on, and with every second that passed, I felt something break inside of me, something old, something toxic. The walls I built for 30 years started to crack. Because hate has no logic. It's not built on facts. It's built on fear, and fear evaporates when you're faced with real love, real mercy, real humanity. When the ambulance arrived, he stayed, told them what happened. He didn't leave until he knew I was safe, and he never asked for anything, never gave a speech, never said, "I told you so." He just left me with the truth that everything I believed about those people was a lie. You spend years building a story in your head, and it takes only one moment, one person to tear it down. That moment was my undoing, and my beginning. My heart nearly stopped, but my eyes finally opened. That one act of compassion, that one moment of grace unraveled decades of hate. And in that moment, I didn't just survive, I woke up. For the longest time, I thought I knew the truth. Thought I understood the world, the people in it, who to trust, who to fear. My opinions weren't built overnight. They were passed down, reinforced by conversations behind closed doors, news headlines that told only one side, and a society that never asked me to look deeper. I saw Muslims through a lens that wasn't mine. It was borrowed, distorted, and fed to me in pieces. Every time I saw a beard or heard a different language, something inside me tensed up. I never questioned why. I just accepted it as instinct, but instinct isn't always truth. Sometimes it's just a habit wearing a mask. I lived like that for years. Decades, really. I didn't speak out loud about my views, but I didn't have to. My silence did enough damage. My distance, my suspicion, my unwillingness to see people as individuals. All of that spoke volumes. I kept my world small, safe, controlled, or so I thought. But truth has a way of showing up uninvited. It doesn't knock politely, it barges in, and it showed up for me when I was at my lowest, on the ground, heart failing, life hanging by a thread. I didn't have the strength to move, let alone think, and then he appeared, a man I would have crossed the street to avoid, a man I might have judged just by the way he looked, the way he spoke, but he didn't hesitate. He didn't ask who I was or what I believed. He didn't care about my past or my prejudice. He saw a human being in trouble, and he acted. As he helped me breathe, called for help, held my hand, I realized something was happening. Not just to my body, but to my mind. I was seeing, maybe for the first time, the truth. Not the version I had heard about, feared, or avoided, but the real thing: kindness, strength, courage, compassion. There was no anger in his eyes, no resentment, just calm and care. He didn't save me because I earned it. He saved me because it was the right thing to do that broke me. Because suddenly all the beliefs I clung to, all the judgment I carried, all the lines I drew between us, and them, they didn't stand a chance against the truth staring me in the face. It's hard to admit you were wrong. It's even harder to admit you were blind. But truth doesn't wait for pride. It shows up, whether you're ready or not. And when it does, you either hold on to the lie, or you let it go and step into something new. That day, I let it go. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Every memory of that man's kindness peeled something away. And with each layer gone, I saw clearer. I didn't just owe him my life. I owed him my freedom, because hate is a prison and prejudice is the lock. But truth is the key. And the moment I saw him for who he truly was, not who I imagined him to be, that lock broke forever. And in that moment I didn't just find the truth. I found myself. Fear is a powerful thing. It doesn't need evidence. It doesn't need experience. All it needs is a little whisper, repeated enough times, and it grows. I feared people I never met. I feared cultures I never understood. I feared an entire faith because of stories I was told and images I saw. It didn't matter that I had never had a real conversation with a Muslim. My mind was already made up. I had built an image in my head, dangerous, cold, untrustworthy. I didn't need facts because I had fear, and fear doesn't ask for proof. So I lived behind a wall made of assumptions. Whenever something bad happened, it reinforced that wall. Whenever something good happened, I brushed it off. I didn't want to see anything that challenged what I believed. That would have meant admitting I was wrong. That would have meant facing the truth. And that's the one thing fear never wants you to do. Face the truth. Then came the day that changed everything. It was supposed to be a normal day. I went about my business, same routine, same mindset. And then, out of nowhere, I collapsed. My chest tightened, the world spun. I was alone, helpless, and convinced this was how it ended. All those years of hate, and I'd die with it still inside me. But someone ran toward me. Not away toward. In my fading vision, I saw the very image I feared. A Muslim man, traditional clothing, beard. He kneeled down, lifted my head, called for help, and spoke to me like I mattered. Like I was his brother. Not his enemy, not his stranger, just a fellow human being in pain. He didn't hesitate. He didn't second guess whether I deserved his help. He didn't ask what I believed. He didn't know my thoughts about him, or maybe he did, but it didn't change a thing. He acted out of pure instinct, and that instinct was mercy. He held my hand. He looked me in the eyes. He kept me awake when I wanted to close my eyes and let go. And in those moments, something broke in me. Something false, something rotten, that image I had clung to for decades. It shattered. Because how could this man, who I labeled an enemy, be the one saving me when no one else was around? How could the person I feared most show me the deepest compassion I had ever experienced? That question echoed in my heart long after the ambulance came, long after the hospital, long after the recovery. I kept seeing his face, his calmness, his courage, and I realized the truth. The enemy I feared was never real. He was a ghost built by my ignorance, a shadow cast by lies. The real man, the one who saved me, he was something else entirely. He was human, he was kind, he was exactly the opposite of everything I had believed. And so, the fear died. Slowly, yes. Painfully, yes. But it died, and it made room for something better. Understanding, gratitude, connection. I used to think I knew who the enemy was. Until the day that enemy saved my life. And in that moment, I didn't just gain a second chance. I lost my fear forever. We grow up believing strength looks a certain way. Loud, dominant, unshakable. We're taught that power is force, that toughness means keeping people out, showing no emotion, standing your ground no matter what. That's the image that was drilled into me. Be hard, be cold, don't show weakness. And along the way, I started to see compassion as soft, as something lesser, something beneath real strength. I believed that to be strong, you had to protect yourself from the world, especially from people you didn't trust. And for me, that meant Muslims. I saw them through a lens of suspicion, shaped by fear, framed by headlines, and held in place by my refusal to ask deeper questions. For years, I walked around thinking I was strong for keeping my distance, for looking over my shoulder, for holding on to my hate. I thought that made me vigilant, that made me wise, but it didn't. It made me hollow. Because what I thought was strength was just fear in disguise. I wasn't standing tall. I was hiding behind a wall that crumbled in an instant. The moment I hit the ground, chest seizing, breath gone, I realized how fragile that kind of strength really is. It doesn't mean anything when your life is slipping away and no one's around. It doesn't protect you when death is staring you in the face, and it sure doesn't lift you when you're broken. But you know what does? Compassion. A man I never met, who looked nothing like me, who had every reason to ignore me, didn't. He saw me hurting and ran toward me. He knelt down, steadied me, called for help, and stayed by my side. His hands didn't shake. His voice didn't waver. He didn't yell, didn't panic, didn't hesitate. In the middle of my storm, he was calm, he was peace, and in that moment, I saw what real strength looks like. It doesn't shout, it doesn't threaten, it doesn't carry hate. Real strength is the ability to care when no one's watching, to show up for someone who never showed up for you, to answer hate with help. He didn't need to save me. He had nothing to gain, and yet he gave his time, his energy, and his care all to a man who probably would have looked right past him a day before. That's the kind of strength you can't fake. It doesn't come from pride or ego. It comes from character, from something rooted deep in the soul. It made me question everything I thought I knew. All those years I believed compassion was weak. But in the moment that counted most, it was the only thing that had power. It was the only thing that mattered. He lifted me, but more than that, he showed me another way to live. A way where strength isn't about shutting people out, but letting love in. Where it's not about proving your power, but using it to protect. Where it's not about being feared, but about being remembered. For kindness, for courage, for mercy. I saw true strength that day, and it didn't come from a uniform, a weapon, or a title. It came from a heart full of compassion, and hands that chose to heal instead of hate. And in that moment, I didn't just survive, I redefined what it means to be strong. Hate doesn't always look like shouting in the streets or burning flags. Sometimes it's quiet, it's subtle, it's hidden behind polite smiles, silent judgments, and long-held beliefs you never dare to question. That's the kind of hate I carried. I wasn't violent, I wasn't loud, but I was deeply, dangerously blind. I avoided, I dismissed. I rolled my eyes at compassion and hardened my heart to truth. I thought redemption was for people who admitted guilt, who made huge mistakes, who broke the law. Not people like me, not people who simply kept their distance. But what I didn't realize was that the distance I created was its own kind of damage. For 30 years, I believed I had things figured out. That I was protecting something, my country, my values, my identity. But in reality, I was protecting my fear. I labeled it caution. I wrapped it in pride. And I didn't see the damage it did not just to others, but to me. Because hate, even in its quietest form, poisons everything. It rots your ability to love fully, to see clearly, to grow. It builds a cage around your soul and calls it safety. And then, in one instant, it all broke. I collapsed on the street. My heart, after years of carrying weight it was never meant to bear, gave out. And in that moment, panicked, breathless, alone, I thought I was going to die. I wasn't thinking about politics. I wasn't thinking about opinions. I was thinking about how alone I felt, about how small and scared I truly was. And then someone was there, holding me, helping me, saving me. He was Muslim. The very person I spent a lifetime resenting became the one person I owed my life to. And he didn't know my story. He didn't know my hate. He didn't stop to ask whether I deserved help. He just gave it. That moment shattered something inside me, not just the lies I believed, but the chains I didn't know I was wearing. It's not easy to confront your own heart, to admit you've lived wrong, to stare at your reflection and see the prejudice looking back. But that's the first step, because redemption doesn't start when everything's okay. It starts when you realize how far you've gone off course, when you're willing to let go of the hate, even if you don't yet know what will replace it. I started small, a conversation here, a book there. A prayer whispered in guilt. I didn't expect forgiveness, I didn't expect peace, but what I found was something I never thought I deserved. Mercy, not just from others, but from the man who saved me and from myself. And slowly the bitterness faded, the anger quieted, and in its place came something stronger than I'd ever known. Understanding. Redemption isn't about being perfect. It's not about erasing your past. It's about owning it, learning from it, and choosing something better. And that choice doesn't come once. It comes every day. Every time you choose love over fear. Every time you listen instead of judge. Every time you see someone not as a threat, but as a mirror of your own humanity. Hate ends when you decide it no longer defines you. And in that moment, I didn't just let go of hate. I stepped into the first real day of my life. For most of my life, I thought faith was just a belief system. Something you said you had, something you claimed when it was convenient, something you held on to when you were desperate. I saw people talk about it all the time. Quoting verses, making speeches, pointing fingers at others as if that made them righteous. And I thought that was all there was to it, words. I heard people say God bless, with the same mouth they used to judge others. I saw folks go to places of worship on the weekend, then carry hate in their hearts every other day of the week. And I never questioned it because I was doing the same. I said I believed in God, said I stood for values, said I knew right from wrong, but my actions didn't match those words. I judged, I feared, I assumed. I carried a quiet but heavy hate, especially toward Muslims. I didn't think they were like us. I thought their faith was extreme. I never took the time to learn. I didn't want to. I believed what I heard, what I saw on the news, what I was told in whispers, and I thought that made me strong in my faith, because I stood against what I didn't understand. But then something happened, something that tore every false idea apart in seconds. The moment I collapsed, clutching my chest and falling to the ground, faith didn't look like a sermon. It didn't sound like a quote. It didn't feel like pride. It looked like a man, a Muslim man, rushing to my side, kneeling beside me, calling for help, staying with me, refusing to leave. He didn't know me, didn't know my beliefs, didn't know that I probably would have crossed the street to avoid him just a day earlier. And yet he showed me a kind of faith I had never witnessed before, a living faith, a faith that moves, not just speaks. He didn't lecture me, he didn't tell me what he believed. He showed me through his kindness, through his courage, through his decision to act when others didn't. That's when it hit me. This man's faith wasn't just something he wore or talked about. It was something he lived. His belief wasn't in the words. It was in the way he treated me, in the mercy he extended, in the love he gave without hesitation. It made me question everything. All those years, I thought I was the one who had faith. But when the moment came, I froze. I judged, I ran, but he stepped in. He didn't speak about God. He walked with him, in his compassion, in his humility, in his strength, and that changed me. It made me realize that faith isn't measured by how loud you are or how many verses you know. It's measured by how you treat people, especially the ones who don't look like you, pray like you, think like you. That man never said a word about his faith. But in those few minutes, he showed me more of what God looks like than I had seen in decades of pretending. So now, when I think of faith, I don't think of arguments or labels or appearances. I think of a man who saw beyond my hate and saved my life anyway. And in that moment, I didn't just witness faith. I finally understood what it meant.